Internal combustion engines are back, and they're coming stronger than ever before. With the recent controversies concerning the reliability, safety, and questionable ecological benefit, coupled with a still high price tag and a mediocre range, EV popularity has dwindled rapidly in the past year. As a result of this, many companies have decided to backtrack on their electrification attempts, with Ford being at the forefront, promising us a radical turnover in favor of their already well-established internal combustion models. Problems with ecology and sustainability. Now we know what you're thinking. Wasn't the point of EVs to reduce pollution? Why would Ford work against our nature? After all, one of the biggest reasons why we decided to opt for going fully electric is because there was a promise of sustainability and great ecological benefit. Unfortunately, that isn't going to happen. You see, there is a possibility of producing fully sustainable and completely green electricity through various measures, be it solar, wind energy. However, the truth is that isn't happening, and it won't happen in the next 20 years. Simply put, wind energy and solar energy at the moment aren't efficient enough to provide us with enough electricity to completely turn the entire electric infrastructure green. And what are we using to produce electricity? That's right, we're using fossil fuels. As a result of all this, it's very logical to conclude that an electric vehicle doesn't actually emit zero emissions. It pollutes very much the same as a regular internal combustion car does. In fact, oftentimes they pollute far more than regular cars. The primary reason for this is the production of the vehicle itself, because lithium ion batteries are extremely polluting. Lithium ion batteries, as we know them, are being made and excavated using very, very dirty measures and practices, and this has taken a massive toll on the land that surrounds the mines. In addition to this, there is also the problem of producing these batteries, which is once again a very polluting process, because it relies heavily on various transportation measures that still use fossil fuels. Finally, there is the problem of electricity, which, when EVs are rapidly charged, results in the CO2 emissions being much higher than modern internal combustion engines produce because of the drastically increased power output. And that is where Ford steps in to improve upon the already relatively low CO2 emissions of ICE vehicles. Ford's solution. You see, Ford has kept developing various measures to thoroughly mitigate the pollution that internal combustion engines are producing. In fact, Ford decided a long time ago that they would abandon ICE cars no matter what, and they kept investigating them for years on end. In addition to this, they have recently submitted a patent application to the United States Patent and Trademark Office that proposes a method that would allow trapped vapors from the PVC system to be reintroduced into the precombustion chamber by burning these trapped gases. This way, the Blue Oval wants to increase performance and drastically lower emissions and fuel consumption. You see, Ford's patent includes a technique for controlling the amount of fuel provided by the canister containing unspent ventilated crankcase vapors and various other emissions. The container in question is oftentimes filled with absorbent charcoal, which obviously isn't good for the environment, and that's exactly what Ford set out to replace and eliminate this kind of additive altogether. You see, Ford's patent relies on the fact that the PCV system may malfunction or jam the valve, which could jeopardize the storage canister's integrity and therefore could endanger the environment, as these emissions may leak into the atmosphere. As a solution to this, Ford proposed to channel these vapors into a pre-chamber. This means that instead of being combined with fuel and air, which doesn't utilize the maximum potential energy of said vapors, they will actually be pre-ignited. This brings with it a lot of benefits that are great for the end consumer, the company, and most importantly, the environment. Benefits. For starters, this would drastically reduce systemic strain and it would prolong the lifespan of the engine. This would make it much cheaper to maintain and fix in the long run and will allow the engine to have a drastically higher life expectancy than it does now. This is especially beneficial for modern turbocharged engines, which are overstrained because of the forced induction. That's combined with a very small displacement. Now, the obvious benefit is the fact that all of the unnecessary vapors that the car would spit out are getting reignited, burned, and essentially being utilized much better, resulting in lower emissions. What also lowers emissions is the fact that the car will now be more fuel economical, which means that it will also produce much less CO2 compared to an engine without this method of reignition being implemented. This is also especially beneficial for vehicles that have a larger displacement engine, such as the Ford Mustang and the Ford F-150, both of which are extremely popular in the US today. In fact, Ford has already indulged in introducing this new technology to the new Mustang once it gets facelifted, which is expected to happen in 2027 or 2028. As a result of their efforts, we might get to keep the Coyote V8 engine and allow the true spirit of muscle cars and pony cars to prevail. Furthermore, the F-150 might be the last true full-size pickup truck that has a V8 engine, seeing how the Ram 1500 has decided to drop it in favor of an inline-six, and how the Chevy Colorado V8 engine simply doesn't provide enough power to be truly sustainable. Now, truth be told, the V8 engine will keep polluting a lot as long as it is fossil fuel powered, and it'll always be a gas guzzler no matter what technology you introduce into it. As a result, we won't blame you if you're interested in a small displacement engine or a hybrid, which is why we're happy to announce that when fitted with Ford's new technology, this will also drastically decrease their fuel consumption and exhaust emissions. However, all is not as good as it sounds because there are a couple of problems that Ford is facing. Technological setbacks. Even though the engine itself won't be more complex than it is, it would still mean that we would be introducing an all-new system to the vehicle that will be potentially costly to replace or fix once it goes out. Sure, maintenance won't be as frequent as it used to be. However, the added complexity could result in a disadvantage of higher manufacturing costs and generally more costly maintenance, even though it would be less frequent. To better understand what we're trying to say, we'd like to point you to Chevrolet's active fuel management system, better known as cylinder deactivation, which is present in many Chevy models, and which was designed to lower emissions and to keep the car less strained. However, it proved to be a great nuisance for people driving these cars, as it would fail frequently. Now sure, the Ford solution isn't nearly as convoluted as Chevrolet's solution, and you won't experience the same number of failures as Chevys do. However, it's still a thing to be worried about. In addition to that, what's the point of saving fuel if you're going to pay more money up front to save money further down the line? It's not like you'll be saving 10 mpg or 20 mpg with the same engine. You'll save a couple of miles per gallon and that's it. All this aside, these are very normal problems for a new technology before it gets rolled out. When it gets more popular, we can expect the prices to go down, and we can expect reliability to grow and to be far better than it is in its early stages. Future. Albeit information seems rather contradictory, and although this new technology is yet to be fully integrated, developed, or even tested, we do believe that there is a great future for Ford's initiative. And we also think that there are many more new solutions coming that'll help save internal combustion engines. And why do we think this? Well, simple. Other manufacturers are trying to do the same thing. Just take a look at Mazda. They've been at it for nearly a decade. Their Skyactiv G engines have been developed for 10 years and are being implemented into their cars and have always been revered as one of the most efficient and one of the best engines for the environment and for your pocket. For example, the 2-liter 4-cylinder does around 50 miles per gallon, has no turbocharger, and produces an abysmal amount of CO2 compared to anything else on the market. They've achieved this through their constant tweaking and fixing of the fuel injection system that allows the engine to have a much cleaner burn, which increased the engine's efficiency drastically. Many people even think that these engines have made EVs redundant, as they are extremely cheap to make and are very simple and have a benefit of not producing too much CO2 and being efficient and giving us diesel levels of efficiency despite using gasoline. In addition to this, Porsche has also worked hard on their own pre-chamber ignition system, and it too has brought in a lot of benefits. In fact, because of this, as well as other measures toward creating a less polluting engine, Porsche's exhaust fumes have been cleaner than the air of many big cities such as Shanghai, Hong Kong, Belgrade, and many others. That said, we also want to emphasize the fact that Ford will not be abandoning EVs yet. Like it or not, EVs still present a great potential for the automotive industry, and as such are both very lucrative for Ford to abandon, and they still have a great potential of becoming carbon neutral, or at the very least, nearly carbon neutral. This will be achieved by swapping lithium-ion batteries for a different kind of technology, such as sodium-ion batteries, after those become good enough for real-world use. And since this technology won't use extremely expensive rare earth materials, cars will be far cheaper to purchase. But internal combustion engines too have an incredibly big potential of becoming minimal pollutants too, as time goes by, we will start relying more and more on synthetic and biofuels, which when combined with technology such as Ford proposed, will further lower emissions. Also, let's not focus on FCEVs and hydrogen combustion engines, both of which tend to combine the possibility of carbon neutrality brought to the table by EVs, as well as general convenience that fuel-powered vehicles have. Heck, Toyota and BMW have decided to work on developing hydrogen-powered cars, as both companies already had a pretty good portfolio of both FCEVs and hydrogen combustion engines. And who's not to say that Ford won't join them? After all, this way the three companies would create a foothold on all three major continents and markets and would serve as a good backup to one another. All in all, the automotive industry is in a very weird position right now, and if we're being frank, there are only a few manufacturers that keep a clear head and a good idea of where the future might be headed, and Ford seems to be at the pinnacle of these companies.